All right, guys, welcome in. This is Will and Nick Save the World, and we're here for episode 16.
What's good, everybody? We're back for another one.
But Nick, you didn't do your usual, hey, everybody.
I know. It was about to come out, and I had to switch it to, what's good, everybody? I'm trying to switch it up. I don't know if I want to roll with that each episode, but, we'll see. We'll take it an episode at a time. And
Yeah, go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
I was just going to say, go ahead and hop right into it, especially since we're on the video. We do have a guest today. It's
Yes,
a
we
major
do.
milestone episode because it is our first guest. We have our friend here, friend of the podcast, Tina Christie. Go ahead. You wanna give a little bit about yourself real quick? Let the people know.
Oh, what's up, guys? My name is Christy. I'm 27. Just here to hang out today.
Nice.
Wow.
It'll be fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be great. And Christy will have a lot of great insights to offer. And, Nick and I were very particular about our first guest. It was either going to be you, Christy, or one of our mutual friends, Nick and I's mutual friends. So
I'm
we're
honored.
happy to have you. And I think it'll be fun. And since we have Christy, we're going to discuss some things Nick and I have gone into a little bit, but we're going to go in a little bit more detail. And there's a lot we can discuss, but I think we've kind of talked about the quarantine and coronavirus enough, Nick. So
A bunch.
I think we'll probably go into some other things here today.
Not to disappoint the audience that loves to hear us talk about it.
Yes, but I think we've kind of worn it out as much as we can. But I think, honestly, we're going to talk about some other really important things. And I think just to start this off, we'll talk about just how to I think we'll rein it back into the idea of like dating online and in person. And I think the topic we'll start with is to maybe how to interact with a person that you're romantically interested in. So I know that's a pretty open-ended question, but I'll let you start, Nick, and then we'll go to Christy from there.
Yeah, well, I will say too, I just feel like we should go ahead and get this out here. So me and Tina, we actually used to date one another. So to, you know what I mean? Just so the audience
I wasn't going to
knows.
say it, but
yeah, I figure we can put that out there. Like that's how we know each other.
I love that because you guys are good friends. That's so cool.
Yeah, exactly. And we're still friends. So hopefully we can give like some positive, some optimistic outputs on this because like we were once together. We're not anymore, but we're still cool. We still, hey, you want to come be on the podcast? Sure. You know what I mean? So I think it's good to have that type of relationship. And what we talked about ahead of time, like we finally get a female perspective on the show. So it's not going to be so biased to just the guys. But
yes,
to jump into it, what are we starting with?
I knew you would forget. So we'll start with how to just maybe first time interacting with someone you're romantically interested in.
Okay. Yeah. So what I'll start with, and I think this is important to like the current time, like a past me may say something different, but like currently what I would say is, I think it's really important to just like be yourself. Not that it's not all the time, but like for me, and like me and Will have talked about this on the podcast before, but like I'm really like hell bent on just like doing the things that like I'm interested in doing. And I want to make sure that I always have like time to be able to pursue the things that I want to pursue. So I think it's important to like let people know that up front, because as attractive as somebody might be, like as cool as you might think that they are, if that's going to prevent you from doing like the things that you want to do, I think it's hard to like be happy and like be yourself over like the span of time without kind of like putting that like in the forefront. So to be honest, like how I would approach it is like, of course, like you want to let people know that you're interested in them and everything like that. But to me, like, I also got to say, hey, I'm also interested in myself. There's certain things that I want to be able to do, and just make sure that like that's up front. I don't know if that's necessarily like a specific to like guys or girls. But yeah, I mean, that'd probably be like the first thing that I would put forward.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Christy, your turn. First up.
I think, well, actually on that note, I think that, yes, people have different expectations of how much time you would spend with one another. I think.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that what you're saying, Nick, it's almost more towards, I don't want to say it's unhealthy to not be like that, but I think that, I mean, honestly, I think it is. So I think it's important for both parties to understand that you're also a human being yourself, and you're an individual, whether or not you're in a relationship. I don't think that a lot of people are aware of that or like act like that. I think there are a lot of people who are very heavily dependent on relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess those people would be fine together if they both needed a lot of each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, in a healthy relationship, I think that's good. You know, hopefully you wouldn't have to say that to someone, that I'm also interested in myself. I guess is what I'm saying. Like,
I
you
feel
know,
like Nick
hopefully both
might.
parties would show up being like, oh no,
Yeah.
I just want to, you know, let me turn this audio, because I have the audio going through the computer, but I have my headphones in, so I'm
Okay.
like
Yeah.
not
You
able
can.
to hear.
It's okay.
You work
can.
on that. We can keep talking.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So,
go
but
ahead.
I definitely agree. Christy and Nick, you both made great points, and I think Nick has really opened my eyes to this a little bit more. I think because Nick and I have talked about this somewhat, Christy. Like in some detail, because I've interacted with, you know, a lot of different women on online dating, and a lot of them, you know, it just ends pretty quickly, right? And Nick always tells me like, hey, they're not the one for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't take it personally. Don't take it, you know, too harshly. Like, I think Nick has, you both exactly have the right idea. You have to be yourself, and you have to be willing to be happy and confident in yourself. So, because if you're not, then they're going to find out later that you're not who you're acting like you are, right?
And then
Yeah.
yeah, I think if the relationship's not going to go anywhere if, I don't know. Yeah, so that was an interesting point that you brought up, Nick.
Yeah,
That
I
was
think
interesting.
to your point too,
That was a
like,
weird point of view.
you know, well, it's honestly like, I don't know if I'm weird because of it, but it's like not all that I think of, but as far as when it comes to that, like part of the reason, like, and me and Will have talked about it before, like I'm not really pursuing any sort of like relationship right now because
Yeah.
I'm very content. You know what I'm saying? Like I got things that I like to do, but if it were to come to that, like that's something that I think is like really important to me, and kind of the point that you were making. Like there are some people that I feel like only know how to be like in a relationship.
Mhm.
Like I've had friends like that where it's
Yeah.
like, if you're not in a relationship, they're like, oh, what do I do? And like, to me, it's like much more fulfilling if you can have things that you like to do, if your partner, you know, in this instance can have things that they like to do, and you can just be there and be like supportive of one another. Like, I think that's really cool. And it's, to me, like I would want to make sure like up front, because you might say like, oh wow, like that person's really attractive, like I'd like to, you know, see, you know, if I am into them or not. And if they're just like a very like I don't really know like the words for it, but you know, some of those, or one of those people that's like, oh, I just want to be with you. That's all I want to do. Like that's what the relationship is. Like we're together.
No.
I'd be like,
No,
I don't
you
know
can't
if
have
I got
that.
that kind of time. You know what I'm saying? Like I need time to do X, Y, and Z, that type of deal.
So this came up because Will was asking, how would you interact with someone that you're interested in romantically?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Nick, when you're saying this, is this because of an experience you've had recently? I don't personally think our relationship started like that.
Hilarious.
Yeah, I thought it was.
I don't think our relationship was like that. I think so. I don't think
No.
you're talking about me, but
No.
I'm wondering, has that come up recently? Because that's just so interesting.
Yeah,
Like
no.
what made you jump to like, I want to, like, the first thing, as like when you're thinking about talking to someone you're interested in, the first thing you want them to know is like, don't come for my personal space.
Okay, so maybe that was like a weird way of putting it. I think that's like one of the like.
I'm kind of like Nick in that. So
yeah, it's not that would be the first thing. It's not like I'd walk up to them and be like, hey, by the way, even if this goes great, don't we need to spend at least 3 business days apart before you talk to me again. Like, just know that. That's not the first thing, but I'm saying like that's one of the more important things. Like that's what I'm trying to get to. I guess the first thing would be like, hi, how are you? Like, do you like dogs? What's your favorite color? You know what I mean? Like, that type of shit.
You could start with that. Yeah.
We'd be jumping into the more hard hitting shit.
No,
right off the jump.
No, Nick, I'm a lot like that too. So like I make that very clear. Like I'm, you know, in all of my online dating bios, I'm very specific. I'm like, here's what I'm interested in. Here's what I'm like, you know, I'm very upfront about it. I don't try to pretend to be something I'm not. And I think, in my opinion, that's the only way to have a healthy relationship, where you have independence and flexibility from each other. And that's maybe because I've grown up in a household where my parents are a lot like that. You know, they both have their own things. You know, they still have a loving relationship and everything, but they also spend a lot of time to themselves doing things they like and they enjoy. And you have to give each other that flexibility and freedom. So I think you should be upfront about that. You know, whether if that scares a person off, then like you said, Nick, they're not the one for you.
Yeah. It's weird too, because I do think that there's like a period. I can actually specifically remember talking to Tina about this, where like, I don't know if she'll remember, but I'll bring up a story. You tell me if you remember or not. But she helped me move from like, I used to stay in Silver Spring, and then I was moving to Frederick, and she was helping me move. She was really nice about it. We're driving in like the U-Haul, and I was asking like a similar question. where this is really funny to me now, but I was asking, I was like, oh, do you like sports? And she's like, yeah, sports are cool. And I was like, are you sure? Because some girls be like, yeah, I like sports, and then you get to know them for like 2 months and they're like, I hate sports. And she was like, no, they're fine. And she hates sports. She specifically lied to me about the thing that I was like, so saying this is okay if you don't like this. I'm just asking just to get a feeler. So I think
Tina was not upfront.
No.
I didn't. Okay, so to be fair, I had never had a boyfriend who made me watch sports, or like who watched sports as much as you.
Made you?
Yeah, ass and chair. We're watching this game.
We're watching Lamar right now.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I definitely did not have a relation. I wasn't in a relationship previously where someone was so into sports. So like, do I think sports are cool? Yeah, I played sports all growing up. Like, I think some sports are cool. Yeah. Do I necessarily want to like watch every football game? No, I don't. So I don't know. That wasn't a lie. That was like, and I tried to get into basketball, which I did.
Yeah, just as an example, I'm not trying to like roast or anything like that. Yeah, but to that point, it's all perspective too. So you know what I mean? Previously to her, it's like, oh, liking sports, that's every now and again we might see it. Cool. Fine. Yeah, but to me, it's like, I need to watch this shit. Like, I need that's all to watch.
You do.
Well, with Nick, as long as you like LeBron, you're all right.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, as long as you're a fan of LeBron, you're good in Nick's eyes. So I mean,
to like I think the bigger point, I think that's like, maybe that's what I'll change my answer to, is like kind of like getting like realistic like expectations of like what somebody's interested in, what somebody's after. And just going back to the earlier point too, like I didn't mean to come off so strong with like, give me my personal space. But to me, it's like there are certain things that are important to me. So to use this example, like watching sports, like there's some like games I'm like, I need to watch this.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be instances where it's like, I want to watch this. And if you don't want to watch it, that's fine. But I do need to like know ahead of time, like, hey, that means that this is going to be a Nick thing. It's going to be a personal thing for me where you don't necessarily got to join, but I'm going to be doing this.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm the same way, Nick. You know, for sure, when The Last of Us airs on HBO, I'm going to be setting aside that time. Right. So, but I think we'll rein it back in and tie it back in here. So, the original question was asking about, interacting with someone that you have a romantic interest with. So I think we've all been in agreement with be upfront and be yourself. Yeah. So I think and I think your effectiveness in this will vary greatly depending upon the person you're interacting with. So that's like, one approach is not going to work for the other. Right. So, but I think, how have you guys found it, like the first time interacting with that person? Have you like used a specific approach, like maybe to use humor or to introduce yourself in an interesting kind of way? Is there anything specifically you found that's like effective or useful?
The very first time I'd be reaching out to someone or making the first move.
Exactly.
I definitely think this is why the people I've started something with has gone somewhere. It's been because there's already a mutual interest.
Gotcha.
Not in each other, but like of an activity, or like we already have. I don't approach someone unless I already know we have something in common and I know that we would get along. So like, for example, since it's just, I mean, he's right in front of me. So like for Nick, we worked together. And then, so like I came across him on a dating app and it was like, okay, well, like it's rather than me shooting a shot with like some random, like I didn't ever swipe for anyone.
Yeah.
But for him, I was like, oh yeah, like he's fun. Like I know he's funny. Like I know we both are like lighthearted-ish people.
You're really building Nick's ego right now.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, he's a great catch. So, I think knowing that you like, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to shoot a shot in the dark. So I think I've always talk to someone when I already know that there's something that I can talk about that they're interested in.
So you already have that bond. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, like if maybe I'm on their Instagram and I see that they like music, or maybe they like put some music out and I can be like, oh, hey, like this is really awesome. I really enjoy this.
Right.
And then I think that's, I think that one's definitely like,
I agree. I think that's
the
good.
easiest way.
Yeah.
And to your point, like something, especially like we're all of like adult working age now too. I think
Right.
it's really nice to be able to relate to somebody with work. For example, with like me and Tina, we literally work for the same company doing the same shit. So it was really easy to bitch and to be like understanding of each other. But just in general too, like if you to her point, like if you don't really have much in common with somebody, or you can't really understand like where that person's coming from or why they're doing the things that they're doing, it's probably going to be tough to really like have a connection with said person if you're not like understanding what's going on. So I think it is good to at least have some sort of common ground where you can always kind of like fall back on that. Imagine going on a date and like, so, you know, in this example, say you like have similar work and stuff like that, and you try to talk about something that goes horribly wrong. You'd be like, oh, well, yeah, work, blah, blah, blah. Like at least that's good, because shit, I know if I went out with somebody and I knew nothing in common ahead of time, like that is a recipe for potential disaster. It could go really good. You know what I mean? You could find out that you have a lot of things in common, but you could also find out you have nothing in common, and then just have a really awkward afternoon or evening.
And it's so much easier. You guys are, I think, hitting the nail on the head. So much easier in my experience as well to initiate that first interaction if you have something to talk about, you know, because otherwise it can feel very forced and very creepy. If you're just like, hey girl, what's up? Or hey guy, what's up? Like that's kind of, you know what I mean? But if you're like, hey, like I listened to this song and I saw you like this band, did you listen to their new album or something like that? Like something you can just casually, naturally create a first interaction.
And bro, when you say that, go ahead.
Go
ahead, Tina. Oh, I was gonna say, when you say that, like that makes me think like that's how I like to interact with like my friends and stuff too. You know what I'm saying? Like if I've got a friend that I can connect to with whatever the topic may be, say it's music, like that's a good way to like build your friendship with somebody. And if you're trying to date somebody, I think it's good to be friends. And you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's being like sexual aside, like being able to have like things that you guys are like can be friends about. I think that's nice too. Like I think that's just a overall just
gotta be friends,
interacting with people. Yeah,
you gotta be friends. Go ahead, Christina.
So I guess that kind of, if you're, I'm currently not on any dating apps because, you know, but I guess if you're talking about
you can't go out. There's no point.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly. There's no point to go out at all because you literally can't right now. No one can. Yeah. No one can at all.
I actually did read an article that like Bumble is killing it because they have like a video time or a FaceTime feature.
I can confirm this. I have not used it.
Okay.
It is there.
I heard like the average time people spend on it is 30 minutes, which I was like, wow.
Whew. Yeah, that's
right?
Really interesting.
I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess if we're talking about how like to message someone, or what would I say if I'm like reaching out to someone on a dating app where it's less like, it's like, okay, what, they have a picture of their dog, so you can say something about their dog. You can say something about the concert they went to. Yeah.
Nick, so smooth. I like your dog.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
I've received a message like that because I do have a picture of me and my dog. So
and your dog is very like beautiful and photogenic.
Yes, he is. Both of them are. So, but like he especially is very majestic. He's very fluffy. So he looks very big. And he looks like a lion. So.
And do you like, is it easier to talk to people after they comment on your dog, or does it die out after that?
Yeah, that is interesting.
That's hard to say because I don't know. I feel like I should start cataloging answers that are related to my dog so I can do like research on it, because like I know, right? Because half the time I do feel like it is easier. They do initiate the conversation, but then other times it's like, yeah, like your dog. It's like, okay, thanks. And then we start talking, and then in half an hour it's over. So it's like, but it did initiate at the very least. So
have you ever on dating apps, so you're saying like they end pretty quickly, do you ever go back like a few days later to message them again?
Nope. Yeah. Nope.
Okay. So see how, like when you're talking to someone, like once you've already got their number, sometimes conversations don't go very far, and that's just fine, because sometimes a conversation a day only goes so far. I think that's natural. I think that messaging them a second time would be interesting, because it's like, oh no, like I enjoyed that conversation, and I don't have this high expectation for it to be like, oh my God, I found the love of my life. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, a nice interaction is fine. Like, okay, a few days later, 3 business days per Nick.
3 business days, new rule.
3 business days. then you can message them again. And I think that's how you kind of get to know people, like, oh, like, how are you? What did you do today? Or
Right.
I think that's always a good one, because then you figure out what they're literally doing every day.
And I'm also a lot like Nick. So like, I feel like, and not to interrupt you, but like, I do feel like I'm a lot like Nick, where like, if I don't feel like I need it. So like, I'm on those apps just kind of to explore, but like at the same time, it's not like I'm kind of like Nick, and like, I'm not necessarily like looking, like I'm just kind of like exploring my options. But like, if I don't feel like the conversation really goes anywhere, or I'm Nick and I both, all three of us, we're all busy working adults, and we're all doing a bunch of different things. So like, I get sidetracked. So like, if the conversation ends, I don't explore it again usually, because it's just kind of like, well, it's ended, so now I'm playing piano, or now I'm working on a video or something. So like, I just kind of move on from it.
That's a good point though, and I think that's a good perspective coming from her, because
yeah, it is.
Societally, most of the time the males are expected to like initiate and do all these types of things, and
they are. Yep.
I do think, to your point, yeah, to anybody that's like listening that maybe is interested and maybe had like a good exchange of messages and then it stopped, like to Tina's point, like, yeah, I guess like message again and say what's up. If they ignore you, then just leave them alone. Don't like be creepily like pursuing. Right. But yeah, I mean, to like the point that you were saying, even with like either of you guys, if I'm texting one of you guys and what needs to be said has been said, I don't go out of my way to just continue to like texting until there's like something to be said. So to that point, like, God, I guess if you like dumb it down or like simplify it to how you would interact just regularly, if it were not in a situation like that, where maybe like it feels like the expectations are different, like that's just what would naturally happen. So yeah, you could always pursue it 3 business days later, and as the rule implies.
I want to kind of get Christy's opinion on something too, because I don't know how Nick, I don't know if we've talked about this, Nick, but I do kind of have like a firm rule that I don't, often break. So like, I feel like I've always been of the opinion that I don't ever want to feel forceful or pushy or creepy or anything like that. So if I message someone, and we're having a conversation, but then they don't respond, I don't text them again, because like, I just don't explore that again, because, especially if I'm just getting to know the person, say on a dating app. Like if it's Nick and I'm texting Nick, I'll text him again tomorrow if I need to tell him something. I'm not going to like never text him again. But like, because he didn't respond. Sorry, Nick, you didn't answer me. Good luck with your life. But
our friendship is now over.
Maybe in 3 business days, if you get back to me, I'll answer you. But so yeah, I've kind of approached it that way, and I don't often rather break that rule, because I just kind of say like, hey, for one, I'm also, like I said, I'm busy, so I explore other things. So like, but I just have kind of a thing where if someone didn't answer me, I just leave it, and then that's it. So that's probably why a lot of them might end so quickly, because they might go for like a day, but then they don't answer, and then I'm like, okay, that's it. So then I just leave it.
I think it's different, because I've had the people where the conversation doesn't really go anywhere. It's like the conversation sucked, and then it's like what's up? Nothing. What's up? Nothing.
Right. That's never happened to me.
And then they text you the next day and they're like, what's up? And I'm like, oh my God, what do you want? But honestly,
exactly.
So like, persistence definitely does matter. Like if you're actually interested in someone, I mean, I know personally, someone's asked me to hang out, and I was like, oh, like, haha. And then a month later, they asked again, because I was like, I'm not interested in dating right now. Like, yo, like, yeah, you're cool, but like,
if you get the oh, haha, then that's a no. That's a firm no.
I was like, no, I was like, oh, maybe. But then I ended up like, they asked again like a month later. They're like, oh my God, but I'd love to meet you. And I was like, okay, yeah. And I ended up dating them. So it's like,
wow.
Yeah, persistence, 100%, I think. And yeah, I know it's like there's a lot of pressure on guys to initiate things, but I feel like don't like, it's just like girls are waiting to be pursued, whether that's wrong or right.
Yeah.
I think that's the way it is a lot of the time. So don't be like nervous about, like, if you're interested in someone, make it known, because I think there are a lot of women waiting, not like waiting, but like who aren't
please message.
That's so interesting though. Like that's so interesting though. Like, and I think we should probably explore that at least briefly. Like, and this probably is gonna have to come mostly from Christy here, but why do you think women need to feel pursued? Like, why don't they make the first moves a lot of times?
Society.
Okay.
It's societal, and actually I can to give a really good point to this too, like again with persistence. When Nick and I first started talking, he would text me like every single day, and then we would talk whatever. I'm pretty sure he would text me every single day, and then there was one point
right
where
now.
Nick
broke my own rule. 3 business hours. I'm like, hello.
Hey, but see, rules are meant to be broken, and in this case, it worked out for you.
Yeah.
So it all worked out. But Nick, no,
Okay.
Nick wasn't creepy because you were interested. So he was reading the terrain correctly.
Right, but then listen, so for what happened was then at one point so like I had my own rule. I've since changed my mind about this, but I would never pursue a man ever. I'm 27 years old and I pursued someone for the first time last year in my life. I've only dated people who pursued me. I was never interested in them first. They were always interested in me first. Like, I think it's definitely, I don't think that that's the way it has to be for women, but I think that's in my specific life, that's what I've been taught. I don't think it's right. Obviously I said I'm changing, but like Nick at one point stopped texting me after months. I think it was like 2 months or maybe 1 month or 2 months of talking. And he didn't text me. He didn't text me for about 3 to 4 days. And I was like, And I literally had the thought, damn, I liked him. Oh, well.
On to the next one.
And then he texted me and he was like, yo. And I was like, hey, like, what's up? And he was like, not much, like, just like, I liked this girl and like, she didn't text me. Like, I didn't text her to see if she would text me and she didn't she didn't text me. So
you can cuss if you want.
sorry.
I don't really, but Nick does, and it's no problem.
Yeah, but like he called me, he definitely called. He stopped responding. He stopped texting me first. I didn't text him first because that wasn't something I did. And then it would have ended. I would have never pursued him back. And we ended up dating for 2 years after, because he texted me and he was like, yo, are you interested in me or no? Like, what's going on?
Did you say that, Nick?
I don't know what I said verbatim, but yeah, that is a true story. And I honestly forgot till she just brought it up.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, we talk back and forth. But yeah, I guess I was, and I guess I still kind of am. I just haven't like pursued anything to like remember this about myself. But yeah, I don't always want to be the one like initiating conversation and be like, hi, how are you doing? Like, how's your day? Like, to me, that feels forced. And like, I've definitely said this to Tina, like more than one occasion. And it's definitely like a rule I try to abide by is like, I do not want to be the creepy guy. Like, I will go out of my way to just say like, okay, whatever. Like, I'm just not going to talk to somebody rather than like even think that maybe I'm being like creepy and like over pursuing and that type of stuff. Cause I don't ever want to make somebody uncomfortable. Like I feel like without having been a female myself and like going through that type of thing, like I feel like that's gotta be like one of the worst feelings.
Right.
Have somebody like breathing down your neck, like super overbearing, like, and you're not interested in that. So like, I really try not to do that. So like in this instance, it's like, okay, like we've been talking for a while. So it's not like initially where like we've been saying, like it is kind of like a societal thing that like the guy will be the pursuer and the girl will be the pursuee. But it's like we've been talking for a little while now. So like if you're interested in me, like I feel like the doorway has been open to be like, hi, like how are you? What's going on? You know, that type of thing. Right. And yeah, like it didn't happen for a few days. So I was like, I guess we're gonna get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, you gotta get clarity sometimes.
Yeah.
So I don't think, I mean, I think multiple times in my life, I would not have, I think don't be afraid to like double text. If someone doesn't answer you, that's a little like off-putting, but like if they don't answer your question and then you go to text them again, I think it's different than like if the conversation just ends.
Right.
If you're like, oh, okay, well, cool.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think another theme I'm hearing here is, and I think sometimes maybe I and a lot of other men are not good at picking up signs. So like whether it be one direction or the other, whether it be she's not interested, I'm pretty aware of that typically because I it's usually pretty easy to tell if you're looking for it. But like I a lot of times can't tell if they are. So like a lot of times people will tell me like, oh, dude, she was so interested. I'm like, what do you mean? Like I never picked up on that. So I don't know, Nick, if you've experienced similar things, or Christy, you, but because I know Christy, you said you haven't really pursued a lot of guys, but like, you know, if you are interested in a guy, have you, either of you experienced, you know, from the person you've been interested in, them not having any idea?
Not
Here's the
having it.
thing.
Like them not being aware that you're interested, even though you're trying to make it obvious.
Yeah, for me, I don't think so. I think I can talk about like
maybe it's just me then.
Well, no, I think it can be tough.
Right.
I totally get what you're saying. I don't think you're like off base by any means. I'm sure there's like a lot of people that, you know, are like slightly oblivious, or maybe like you don't want to like assume, and then it's like, oh, now I'm the asshole for like thinking like, oh, they're so into me. Yeah, they're definitely into me, and they're not. Like that's like the area that you want to avoid. But yeah, if either of y'all want to talk about this, go ahead, because I have something different I want to talk about. I think.
Yeah, go ahead. So, Christy, do you have anything to add to that?
About approaching someone, like trying to make it clear that I'm not trying to just be friends.
Right. Like, have you experienced that?
I think I'm not concerned about just being a friend at first.
Gotcha.
So okay. More so, I focus more so on becoming. So like when Nick and I first started talking, just, and again, easy example, like it wasn't like we had been around each other a lot previously in like a very like coworker, not friend, but like coworker type of thing. So I think it very much so started as friends, like the way we would text, the way we would interact. And then it was like, once we started going on dates, then it turned more. Yeah. So I don't think I was too concerned about it coming across over text or message as friend. Yeah. Okay. More so just like, as long as you get that connection, then you're good.
Right. All right, Nick. So go ahead and dive in when you want to.
The other thing I was going to say, I think it's kind of the reverse of what we've been talking about, but as far as like the societal like standards of like who like should go after who, I will say I've been off put by girls before that have like over pursued like on me. Yes. Like when a girl has been like, oh my gosh, like, what are you doing? Like, we should hang out. Like, let's go to this. I don't know why I use that voice. I'm so sexist. I'm so sorry, everybody. No, it's like fine. When somebody's been like, oh, let's hang out. Like, what are you doing today? Like, I've been like, whoa, like, no, thank you. I kind of will say that as like a guy, I do think it's cool to like be the like pursuer, I guess. Like if something, this is going to be hard to dance around, not making this sound
Let's see
bad.
how you do it.
But if something comes too easily to me, I'm like, I don't really, like, so in that example, like if a girl's like really like trying to like hang out or something like that, like, oh, I'm free today, tomorrow, whenever, I'm free all the time. Like, I'm like, it's not like, it's like nothing earned. What's the saying? Like nothing worked for, nothing earned type deal. Like that's kind of how I feel about like in a relationship as well. Like I want to
win someone.
I want to win someone over. That's a better way. I don't want to win them like a prize. I don't want to throw a dart through a balloon and be like, haha, you are mine now. That's why people go on dates at the carnival. They're like, if I throw this baseball through all 9 of those bottles, she will be mine. No, but like, I want to.
Yeah.
Is it because of that, Nick, or is it because that tells you something about their personality? It also tells you about desperation, or if they're actually interested in you, because if someone at that point, someone doesn't know you that well, so why are they so interested?
That's a great
because I feel like it's normal to be like, yeah, like I'd like to meet up, because both people are kind of like, I think I might like you, but like if someone's like, yeah, no, 100%, I love you, then it's like, why you don't, because you don't know me, first of all.
That's
so
a good point.
Right.
Yeah. Like if you've been out with somebody like once or twice and then that's like how they act. Yeah. That is kind of like that's like a little bit of a red flag, I feel like, because
for sure.
Yeah. To the point that you're saying, it's like, how do you know you want to spend all the time? That's one of those people that just needs to be in a relationship. That's those people. Maybe that's why I'm like, hey, just so you know, I can't hang out for like 2 weeks after this.
Just so you know, gotta watch the LeBron game.
Oh my God, is that what you're up to now, Nick? You hang out with
no.
You hang out with a woman once every 2 weeks.
No, I don't go out with anybody anytime.
I think Nick Nick is more concerned with streaming Fortnite at this point.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and so yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So yeah, I was gonna say Nick is more concerned with streaming Fortnite, and I'm a little more concerned with reviewing movies and trying to convince Nick to go see movies, even though he never will.
I'm sure. I mean, I know that there's a lot of females interested in movies, and I know that there's
Right.
gamers. So that I think it would be so cool to like find your like your biggest hobby, or like one of your like main hobbies, to find a connection with that in a relationship.
Well,
I think that's ideal, right?
well, I don't know if Christy. So I'm gonna really out myself here, but I don't know if Christy had listened to the podcast, Nick, about Pennywise.
I have no idea. Do you hear
So,
about that?
so Nick
Oh,
has
no.
said that I would be best with the horror cosplay community because I bought this Pennywise statue that's like 4 foot tall. So like Nick was, and I told Nick, I was like, well, I don't think any female is probably ever going to step foot in this house ever again after they see that. So like he said, look, they're not the one for you. You just got to find someone who's really into that stuff. I'm like, I think that's a pretty tough ask because, but it comes back to the point, like I was never concerned about that because you have to be yourself. You have to pursue the things you enjoy and you can't be too concerned with what other people think about it. If you like it, that's what matters.
I think you have to have something I don't think you have to have all of your hobbies in common, but I think
Right.
it's like, I think it might be important to have at least one hobby in common. Like, so you said you play the piano.
Right.
Maybe there's someone who also enjoys music a lot, or like something else you spend a lot of time doing, or not a lot of time, but like at least decent time. Because what are you going to do, eventually when all like the romance, like it's not so exciting just to like be around each other. Like when there's nothing to talk about anymore, what are you going to do with each other?
Right.
Like when relationships fade out or die down, it's like, okay, because like, is there a friendship?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything even?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So maybe start looking for someone who does that again.
Right. Yeah. And I noticed that too when you guys were dating. I think it's funny, Christy, now that I've met you officially, I'd seen you, I think, in 1 or 2 of Nick's videos. I can't remember exactly, but it was like, I think you had a vlog or something. I think that was it, wasn't it, Nick?
It probably
it was
one or
like
two.
years ago. It was like forever ago. Yeah. So, but it's definitely interesting because it seemed like you guys were enjoying, kind of like hanging out, and you have to have that friendship as the foundation.
Mm-hmm. Interesting fact, we were actually broken up at that point.
See, there you go.
Yeah. That's the thing. Wow. I think, because there was like some common ground. I think that's why we're still able to be friends now, because like we did have like things that we enjoyed together, and like we both enjoyed, where now we can still like text and shoot the shit about, like, for example, like if I have like a video idea, like I could bounce it off of her. If she wants to do something like musically or just like creative things in general, like we kind of have that common ground and like a trust from one another, because like we spend so much time together where it's not like you're just like, you meet somebody for the first time and you're like, what do you think about this movie, for example? Like if you're making a movie and they're like, oh yeah, I mean, that's great. Well, you don't know what their background is. You have no idea if they have good taste or not, if they have like the same sense of humor as you. So to be able to like say, okay, cool, I kind of like know where that person's coming from, I think that's like a good thing to have established.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's important to, have that friendship, but also to, if it is a romantic thing, then, balance those two appropriately. But I think Christy makes a really good point. You definitely have to have, I would say, maybe 1 or 2 common interests that you can hang out and, explore together. But I think, you can always typically find something. I mean, if there's not at least one thing, then that might just be a huge problem because, like I mentioned, like a lot of people enjoy going to the movies except for Nick. So like, if you like are dating someone, you can at least find common ground to that. Maybe you both like going out to dinner. Like that might not be a hobby, but it is something that you can enjoy doing together, or going to, I don't know. What else do people do nowadays? I don't know. Because everything's changed now. So.
Well, bro, dinner is definitely a big one. I think it is good to be able to go. And especially if you enjoy the same cuisine or you're just willing to try new things, like I think that can be fun. But I knew we said we weren't going to talk about it, and I already mentioned it once, but I do got to go back to the Corona situation. There's been a lot of people I've seen online to this point, though, that are getting exposed because of Corona, and you can't go outside and do other things, where there's like couples that are either like thriving because they get to spend that extra time together, or couples that are like, going the wrong way because maybe like if you got in a relationship with somebody and it's just because like, oh, that guy or that girl's like super hot, like I'm super into them, like I want to cuddle them or whatever, and now it's like, oh shit, we got to spend 24 hours together, and like I actually don't like shit that you like that sucks, you know what I mean? That you don't got that common ground to fall back on, so you out here during quarantine season wanting to, and that's just not good.
I can't imagine you, Nick, like seeing an attractive girl the first time, like, man, I want to cuddle that girl.
Yeah, I just
want to cuddle.
Yeah, I just want to cuddle.
I thought that was a more family friendly term.
It was. I get what you were going for. Absolutely. It definitely is. So, Chris, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh God, to what? Cool quarantine dating is what Nick just brought up.
Yeah. So just
I think it's more than just people having interest together. I think it's a lot of stress. I mean, financial strain. People are losing their jobs. I think
That's true.
Right.
It's when has the last time, so people, especially like our age, this has never happened before for us. Like, we've never had a situation like this in our adulthood where life changes significantly and we can't do anything about it. So I think a lot of people are dealing with stress that they don't know how to handle or manage. Right. So it might be more than just whether or not they have interests together.
It's multi-layered, multifactored. Yeah. I would say so. Fair. Okay, so I think that's absolutely fair. So, and I think, if we take this in a somewhat similar but slightly different direction here, one thing that I think we wanted to talk about, at least kind of as we were prepping for the show, was managing expectations. And I think we've kind of hit on that a little bit, but I think
you and I have talked about it a little bit before.
Right, but I think we can explore it a little bit deeper here with Christy. For sure. So, and I think managing expectations can be a really broad topic, because it can be managing expectations on a first date, managing expectations the first time you talk to somebody, 3 years in a dating relationship. But I think, is there like a general way that you guys just approach managing expectations when it comes to romance in general?
I don't know if it's like romance necessarily, but I think it'll apply. And I told you about this before on one of the episodes that we did, and I actually shouted out Tina because she was the one that kind of like put me onto this game. Like, I feel like from her, like, expectations like just lead to like all things bad. You know what I mean? I think it's just good to go into situations with an open mind. Like, and if you're really expecting or anticipating something, like, you should talk about it ahead of time. Like, for example, if you I'll just go no, I don't want to go where I was about to go. So if you were going out to dinner and like you were expecting to say like pay for the meal, and you say, oh well, if I pay for the meal then she's gonna definitely want to see me again, you know what I mean, or maybe come back and hang out or something like that, and they don't want to do that, well, now you're just making yourself upset. You know what I'm saying? Like, you should just do that if that's what you want to do. If you want to be a gentleman, a chivalrous type individual, then do that. Like, that's a very kind thing to do, but you shouldn't do it with the expectation of, oh, I'm gonna pay for this meal and now we're gonna go get drinks or some shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Right. So just like, I don't know, man, I try not to have expectations. I just try to go with the flow and just expect things of myself. Like, expect myself in like a dating aspect to be like just a nice person, to be, you know what I mean, like a gentleman, and that's it. Just kind of let it go from there.
Yeah, and I'll mention before I let Christy jump in here, like I had mentioned to Nick on another podcast, Christy, about a relationship, not a relationship, but like a dating interaction I had where it changed my whole perspective on everything, because before that was coming in, I think, with a lot of expectations, and I think we both really liked each other a lot, so we moved really quickly. So then when, things went really bad really quickly, it just kind of was terrible for me, because I was like, well, I had all these expectations, everything was going great. So now I learned a lot from that. So the way I approach things now is exactly like Nick said. Like, I approach it as, I don't have any expectations. I don't think about it. I just let it go loosey-goosey and just see what happens, and then just adapt as the situation evolves.
I mean, I think that's exactly, I'll be totally transparent. I just started going to therapy because I think I do very poorly in relationships, especially with expectations. I tend to try, and so I used to hold expectations, and it would be like a form of protection of myself. So, for example, I don't know in your experience what happened, but like, oh, if you don't like something that someone does, and you're like, oh, that's a deal breaker. Is that like a scenario? Like, why did things turn south in your situation?
Yeah, that definitely can be. In my situation, I think that's pretty apt description. Basically, like a short summary, basically, we were kind of like not really dating, but basically, right? And we had been hanging out a bunch. And then, she invited me to like this house party she was having, right, with all of her friends. And I was to meet everyone and be introduced and, inducted, so to speak. And then basically I just kind of got the cold shoulder the whole night, and she just ignored me and didn't talk to me the whole time. And then just kind of, I left, and then she just never even cared at all. So it's one of those things where I was like, well, why invite me as kind of your date? I get we're not going to be clingy, right? But, some kind of like, she just kind of left me alone, and I was just I didn't know anybody else. So I was trying to interact the best I could. But it was one of those situations. After that, things were never the same, and it ended really quickly after that. So now I just don't expect anything from anyone. My expectation was, for her to kind of interact and just, now I would go into the whole interaction, the party, with a whole different set of mindset, and just no expectations, just go with whatever happens. And then when things don't go the way you think, then you're able to adjust to that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of it is, it's like looking outward and like blaming other people,
right,
rather than just like paying more attention to yourself. Like, I guess it's more so like, if you don't want to go to a party, then don't go to a party. Like,
right.
Rather than like, because now then it just creates a space for you to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. And then also it's like, if something about someone bothers you, it's like, okay, then don't do that thing. Like, you don't have to, just because they do something that you don't like, doesn't mean that has to like end the relationship. And it doesn't mean that that's something you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you personally would be like, I would never do that to someone. I would never bring someone to a party and then leave them alone and not talk to them. Like, you don't have to, then don't be that person then. But it doesn't mean that like, just because your partner did that, like maybe they were like, just like you said, change your expectations. Like, maybe they were like, oh no, like I wanted to see how well you fit in with my friends, if you're like my friends, or like, I had no idea I was having so much fun with my friends. Maybe I haven't seen them in 5 months and I was super excited to see them.
Right.
I think there's just like so many, I think just expectations in general, I'm just learning so much. Like, you shouldn't have, I mean, Nick said, I was talking about this, I think I was more so talking to him about this like in work scenarios, when I was like trying to help you out with the way you were with your employees.
I can't remember, to be honest. I just remember like
Nick has always been a saint.
That didn't happen. Yes, I've been nothing but. But yeah, just in general, like the expectations, like without communicating, like what, why, when, where, who, without communicating that stuff, it's like, how could you expect somebody to know that that's what you're expecting? You know what I mean? Like, I just think that's why it's a poor way. Like, expectations is like so bad unless you've like put that up front ahead of time. If I was like, hey, like, can you be, so if you're asking somebody out on a dinner date, right? And you're like, hey, can we meet up at 8? And they go, yeah, 8 sounds good. I think at that point, it's pretty fair to expect, okay, I'm going to meet this person for dinner at 8 o'clock. Like, it's been established.
Yeah.
Just like, wow, I would love to meet this person for dinner at 8. And you don't say anything, and you show up to the restaurant and go home pissed off 2 hours later. It's like, you never said anything. I know that's like a dumbed down version of it, but really, like, that's how it can be if you are like, I'm going to use more domestic stereotypes because I'm just that type of asshole, I think. But if it was like in a relationship, I'll use traditional gender roles. If a female was expecting a guy, or I'll just use myself in this instance to say, mow the lawn, and then I never did it and they want to be upset about it, it's like, you never said anything about that. Or maybe a different one, it's like, oh, were you going to wash some dishes? Like that type of shit. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't say it ahead of time, you getting upset over things that were never discussed. Like, I think that's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, for sure. I think that goes so deep, and I think that's at the beginning of relationships through like your entire lifespan in the relationship. Like just like love languages. So like Nick's is like doing acts of kindness for others. It's certainly not one of mine. He loves grocery shopping for people.
Do you?
I love grocery shopping. I'll do it multiple times in a week.
Very, very kind, very generous. Like, goes buys food, makes food. I don't cook. I don't like grocery shopping. So like, I would never do it back. And so that was like offensive to him.
that is a good point. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that like we had gotten in arguments before, where it's like, going back to expectations, it was kind of like, I wouldn't
do chores.
Hey, she's just lazy.
But that is No, Christy, but that is a roommate thing, not a relationship thing. That's just like a general.
Oh, okay. What's up?
Yeah.
My dog got my back.
I got your back, Nick.
But is it because on my own, I go grocery shopping like once a month because that's personally how I live. Like I like to like eat until there's no food left.
I'm the same. Yeah.
So like where Nick's like 3 times a week.
I like my food to be fresh. You know what I mean? Like I want to get the stuff ASAP. There's no need to buy it and leave it in my cupboards when the grocery store will house it for me and I can get the freshest version of it.
Yeah.
That's
so
hilarious.
I think expectations are, you know, with everything, like every little thing, don't ever like, I mean, you just kind of have to like, be like, oh, well, I'm self-sufficient and let's see how this person does taking care of themselves next to me. I feel like that's the way, like if we could change our mindsets about relationships in that way, rather than like, oh, how do we work together? It's like, no, like they're going to take care of themselves and you're going to take care of yourself.
Right. But one thing
each other
for sure though, that I think, and hopefully this is clear to everyone, there is a line to this for myself. Like there is a line to this, like Nick's example, like if we agreed to a date at 8 and you don't show, I mean, I expect you to be there, right? Like if we agree,
sure.
Right. So like don't take it to the extreme and say no expectations. So if the person stands you up and already agreed to show up somewhere, that's okay. Because that's
You're like, well, that's okay.
Well, you know, no expectation. Will and Nick and Christy said no expectations. So like, don't expect anything. But you know, don't take it to the extreme. Like you still have to hold your partner accountable for their actions, right? So not to the point where you're like crazy about it, like a police officer or something in a relationship, but like, you know, where to the point where, you know, you expect him to act a certain way and maintain a certain level of, you know, ethics or behavior because it's just what you expect from someone that you value and trust and, you know, romantic with.
I think, you gotta just communication. And then, like you said, I think accountability is a good word.
Yeah.
Which sounds weird being in like a relationship, which I feel you're supposed to be more like flexible and like understanding. And you should be those things. But like to your point, like if somebody just showed up, so for example, you're going to a work function and you invite somebody, you invite your, you know, significant other and they go crazy. They get drunk. They're dancing on a bar. And you know what I mean? That's like embarrassing to you. I think that's kind of something where maybe that's like that gray line of like expectations. Like, damn, I was really expecting you to not make things worse for me, you know, going into this next work week.
Wait, is this a true story?
Nah.
Okay.
Nah,
not saying Christy would do that, but
no,
you know.
Well, she can comment because she took me to some of her work functions, and I don't know how it went for her. For everybody else, she can expose me now here on the podcast if she'd like. But I would just try to sit there and be very well mannered and not say anything too crazy. But it's something like that. But like you said, I think at that point it's like that's not really like an expectation thing. That's maybe you need to recontemplate your whole relationship situation. You're like, damn, I'm really dating somebody
reevaluate your life,
to go crazy in the public and embarrass me. You know what I mean? Maybe that's just not the person for you.
I think it's like less about expectations and more about like finding someone who you actually trust.
Yeah.
And like in that sense, it's not like rules and regulations and expectations and accountability. It's just like, this is how this person behaves. When this person says that they're going to be somewhere, they do that. If they don't show up, it's because something happened, and it's like I should be concerned about it. I know that they hold themselves this way when they're in public or at a work function. I know that they, you know, can do these things, and then that way it's less about like if you can focus more on like the trust. So when something does eventually come up that you don't agree with, because I think it's bound to happen in a relationship that you don't think that the other person doesn't do what you would have done yourself, which would be like failing to like meet an expectation. I think that's when you have to go back to like, no, I trust them. They must have had a reason that they did that, and I'm okay with them doing that because like they had their own reason, even though I don't understand it personally. So I think that's why I'm like, I don't know, expectations seems like a road to failure. I think it's more about like finding someone and then just genuinely trusting them, and then their actions, it's like, oh, I know they did that for a reason. Maybe I can't guess what the reason is, but it's one that I'd respect. I don't know.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So basically
you
trust them, and then their actions will be in alignment with that trust from there.
rather than like, because I feel like you know, everyone, like you and I will have lived such different lives. You have no idea like how I was raised. I have no idea
Right.
how you were raised. So we have totally different expectations of life, like, or
Right.
of behavior. Our parents were totally different, I'm sure. So
Yeah.
our expectations within a relationship can be totally opposite.
Right.
But we can both still, like, it doesn't mean that we don't get along and that we're not good together and that we can't be good together. It just means we would have to like either rework our understanding of something that we mutually agree on, or like trust each other that we're like coming from the best place, and like that this person does this because of this and this person does this because of this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Does it?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I feel like you guys are getting so quiet after I talk.
No, because
You're just preaching right now.
No, you're preaching. We're trying to give you the room to preach, but
Sorry.
also because it's Zoom and we're trying, you know, I always make sure I don't cut the person off because there's always a slight delay. So, side note, by the way, with Zoom, they hooked us up. So that's why we haven't cut it off at 40 minutes, because we're definitely over that at this point.
I noticed a thing
Zoom,
pop up and I was like, huh.
Yeah. Did it send it to you too?
Yeah.
Okay, because it popped up. It was like, hey, we're hooking you up. And it said, typically you will only have 40 minutes, but it said you get a freebie this time. So probably won't happen to us next time. But
shout out to the sponsor of this episode, Zoom, for allowing us continuous recording.
Official sponsor at this point. They sponsored us with a continuously recorded episode.
Wow, so very kind of them. Making our
absolutely.
Quarantine that much better.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, it's a huge step for us. And I think maybe we can hit kind of one more topic here. So since this theme is dating, relationships, romance, whatever, I think one thing we'll talk about here to end things is confidence and just how important that is. So I'll kind of lead into this by saying, I think confidence is a really big factor for, you know, both sexes, right? So like if your romantic interest doesn't appear confident, then you might not be as intrigued by them because they don't feel confident in their personal identity, and that's not attractive, right? So that's something that I've experienced, you know, with myself and with others I've, you know, interacted with. So I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on that and how big confidence is for you, you know, throughout the relationship, whether it be first, you know, flirting or dating, whatever. Like, how big is confidence for you?
Go ahead, Tina.
Talk about Nick's confidence.
I think confidence is super important.
Yeah.
However, I think it's human nature for people to go in and out of waves of confidence. I think that I think it's okay for someone to not feel confident all the time. And I think it's okay to give them a little boost. But then I think when it's to the point where you always have to give them a boost, when it's like, all right, come on, like haven't we gone over this? Like you actually you have value. Like I don't think you should have to remind someone all the time, but I think it's natural to either like, I mean, Nick gave me confidence with making music. Nick was the first person who like made me realize I could do whatever I wanted. Like, I know how dumb that seems, but like I was never taught that. Like, I thought I had to like go get a 9-to-5 job and whatever. I don't know if that would be confidence, but yeah, he gave me confidence. Like, he was like, no, you can literally be whatever you want. So I don't know if you would call that lack of confidence in myself, or like just like I just didn't understand that.
I tried to give Nick a thumbs up and it gave it to me on Zoom.
Wow. You're so selfish, man.
I tried to give it to you, Nick, because I was like, Nick, that is really honorable of you. And
hey.
Christina's really hyping you up. And then I gave it to myself.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Yeah. I do my best.
Sorry to interrupt, Christina. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. No, so I think confidence is really important, but I think that everyone has areas for improvement, or like areas they could be more confident. And I think it's totally fine to like, I think there's been plenty of situations in my life where I've gotten a boost from my partner in a different area, and then I could then carry myself in that confidence. Like I wasn't like, oh, are you sure? Like, I was like, oh wow, okay, cool. And then like, you know, so I think it's, you know, confidence is important, but I think everyone lacks it in some areas, which is fine, just as long as you learn from it.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with everything that she's saying, and kind of hearing you talk about it made me think, like, I guess the way that I would try to frame it is like, just have confidence, like in your convictions, whatever they may be. And like, yeah, you don't have to be like super confident in everything that you do, but at least be like up front and like honest enough with yourself and with your partner and whatever the whatever the situation might be, to be like, I'm not feeling that confident about this, but you know what I mean? At least to say like, hey, you know, I'm willing to try whatever it may be, but I know I'm not going to be like that good at this, or like I've never done this before. But I think like that the middle ground is maybe like where like the turnoff can be, if you have like no idea or no understanding what somebody's going to do. I don't know if I'm making any sense right now.
No, you definitely are.
Okay. Yeah. Like, I think when you're approaching somebody, it's good to be confident to be like, oh, hey, like, you know, I'm interested in you, blah, blah, blah. And not just kind of like, oh,
yeah,
everything okay? Like, that's weird. But I guess like taking it maybe like a step further, if you're not confident that you're going to go to a raw sushi bar and come out of that ready to go dancing afterwards, you know what I mean? Maybe let them know that my stomach might be dancing afterwards. I'm not so confident that the evening's going to carry past this. You know what I mean? That could be like an awkward thing to have to say, but I guess that's like my silly example of it.
Confidence 101.
Where it's like, hey, you just, I think you got to know yourself and be willing to like share and explain and expose these things. And I think that's like the most attractive thing, is just being able to like understand what your own like boundaries and abilities and whatever may be, and then kind of express that to the other person. Like if somebody told me, like, say we were going out on a boat and they're like, yeah, my sea legs ain't shit, like this might not be a good idea for me, I might be like, okay, cool, I'm glad you let me know ahead of time, instead of being like so unsure that you're like, well, I guess I'll try, and then it ends up being like a terrible time, like that type of deal.
Right. And I can speak from experience. I've been on both sides of this. So like I can, just looking and, you know, introspectively at myself here, I can say that I've been on the side where, you know, maybe I appeared like I didn't have confidence, but I think honestly that was in the past, because I've learned a lot from my experiences and I've grown more confident. And this really ties into the main theme we've been talking about, especially in the beginning. So all three of us have hit on be yourself, right? So I've gotten a lot of, you know, people that I've interacted with romantically through online dating or in person or whatever, right? And, you know, they've really, I think, admired and respected how open I am about who I am, right? And like the things that I like. So like and Chris, you're so new and learning, you know, what my interests are and stuff, but Nick knows pretty well by this point. Like I'm super big into collecting like high-end pieces. Like I have these cosplays that are super legit. Nick always calls them grade A. I appreciate that. So like, and I'm very open about that. In my dating profiles, it actually has pictures of it. So like, and I put that in there. It's at the bottom, but it's there. So and
sprinkle it in.
Yeah, right. It's not at the very top. Like, hey, FYI, I am a, you know what I mean? So it's like, but it's something I think I've gotten respect for, because they acknowledge that I'm upfront, I'm open, I'm honest, and that, you know, I'm not shy about the things I like and the things I enjoy. So I think that shows confidence, and that is attractive from what I've seen.
Yeah,
100%.
I've said it before, and like I'll continue to say it because it's one of my favorite things. Is I could have no interest in something that somebody else is interested in, but if they're excited and like proud when they talk about it, it gets me juiced. And I'm like, yeah, tell me more. Like, for example, like in this example with me and Will, like I'm probably not going to go buy like all these like 3-0, what's up, shout out, I've been remembering like type statues. But when he talks about them, when he shows them to me, I'm like, this shit's really cool. Like it gets me excited about it because he's excited about it. And whatever that may be, like it could be any topic. Like shout out to my dog Cam. Like I don't know shit about electricity, but he's an electrician. And sometimes when he'd be telling me about work shit, I'd be like, okay,
that's
okay.
Legit.
Like I'd be getting juiced because like, I know he's like really into that kind of stuff. So just as a couple examples, like that's the type of confidence that for me, that's what I enjoy, is somebody being confident enough and excited enough about the things that they're into to like make me get excited about it with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Christy, where do you stand on this? Because, you know, coming from the opposite gender here, I'm wondering, you know, even if the person has interests that are, you know, definitely not similar to your own, do you still respect that confidence, or do they have to be pretty similar to you?
No, they don't have to be. No, I think, interesting. So no, I don't need to be interested in everything that someone's interested in. Just how like I wouldn't expect you to be like super interested in applying makeup. You know,
I mean, so you never know.
True, very true. But yeah, in that same way, no, I don't expect someone to be and it wouldn't be a turn off on a dating profile. I'd be like, oh, that's cute.
Okay.
Like they like this and they're showing it. And like, what if you get someone who like likes it too and they're like, oh my God, I love this. Like, I love this character.
Right.
Like, that's sick. You should totally put it in there. 100%. I think you should be upfront about the things you like. There's this one like picture or like / poem that I saw, and it was like these two people like wearing masks, and it's like, I went my whole life and like I'm not gonna try and recite the poem, I don't remember it, but basically it's like you'll never know you're similar to someone unless you tell them. Like, these two people can be pretending to be someone that they're not their whole lives when they actually have this thing in common, and you'll never know because they never showed you. So I think sharing your hobbies is like, I don't think it's a turnoff when it's like, oh well, I don't like comics or whatever. Like, that has nothing to do with me. I don't expect us to be similar. And I think it's important to show it just in case there is someone who does relate to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, on my own views on this, I definitely agree. I feel like I agree with both of you in that, you should have maybe one or two things you can find common ground on. But like I said in the beginning, like, I think it's really important to have your own things, like you guys have both, mentioned and, hinted at here and there. So like, to have that flexibility, like Nick mentioned, to have that time where, hey, look, I really got to do this. I want to do this, and give each other that flexibility, because you can feel really, you can feel really claustrophobic in a relationship if you're not getting that space. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I'm sure you guys have experienced that in your own, dating lives, but, I've seen that as well. And it can be really frustrating. And, sometimes you can't always get people like that to listen to reason. Like, so they have to, kind of you explore that, but it's difficult.
Yeah. As far as someone else giving you space, I think a lot of time it has something to do with insecurity in relationships, not with themselves, but just they don't feel safe in a relationship. And that's why because I think at the end of the day, everyone is their own individual person. I think everyone would have their own hobbies if they felt secure, and maybe they feel unsafe in a relationship, which is why they're like latching on harder, because they're like, I don't know, freaking out, because that's what people do sometimes.
So I'll ask you. Yeah, I'll ask you, both of you, Nick, but I'll start with you. So on Christy's point here, is there any way to assist your partner in feeling secure in the relationship? Is there anything you can do, or is that something they have to do?
Recommend that they get a therapist.
No. I think it's on both parties, man. You gotta be willing to gas them up, but at the same time, like you can't just be somebody else's confidence. You know what I'm saying? Like, you gotta be confident in yourself. Like, you can be there to assist. You can say, hey, that's really, even if you're not into it, going back to like what I was just saying, like, even if you're not into it, like, you can definitely support somebody and say like, hey, like, keep doing your thing. Like, for example, if somebody wanted to start painting and their first couple paintings, maybe not that good, but they're like, I love to paint. I love the way the brush hits the canvas. Cool. And you can say, hey, you're doing really good. Like, yeah, I'm seeing improvement. Even just like the fact that somebody's sticking to it, I think just being consistent with things and like being dedicated to a craft, like, that's cool. You know what I'm saying? So just like letting people know like that you're doing a good job. And even if they're not doing a good job, like if that's what somebody's into and that's what makes them happy, just, I guess, like, giving somebody the confidence and giving them the green light, like, that's okay. You can do that. If that's what you want to spend your free time doing, like, by all means. I think that person just at the end of the day needs to be confident enough to say like, yeah, this is what I like and I will keep painting. I don't know. That's how I feel about it. Like, but I can't just be like gassing you up. Like, I can't be painting for you, but I can tell you, hey, your painting is neat.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's two different perspectives of confidence. If someone needs to figure out what they actually like doing and do it because they like it, not because they're looking for feedback. I think that's a major thing, and that itself gives you confidence when you stop looking outward for it. And then the second thing, within a relationship, I'm not sure if what you're asking, but so if someone's like clinging on and it's like an anxiety thing. So that's, I would think that has something to do with the way they were raised, and I do think therapy is necessary. And not in a bad way. Therapy
exactly.
is fantastic.
Yep, it's not a bad thing.
I've been to it before, not couples or relationship therapy, but I have been to like individual a long time ago.
I think even people who have problems in relationships don't need like couples therapy. It's just like something like it's still individual, but like, I go to therapy and I talk about how I behave in relationships because I'm a totally normal, great functioning human being on my own, and I turn into a crazy person in a relationship.
Hey, transparency.
Who wants to date me? Single. I'm just kidding.
Well, at this point you did say you don't pursue people. So if someone does want to date you, they need to pursue you, correct?
No, I said I changed. So.
Oh, but I know you've done it once, so I didn't know if that constituted a change.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Yeah. Well, okay. Well, I'll count it. It's constituted a change. So I'll give you credit for that one. Okay. So as we wrap up here, any final thoughts that you guys have on what we discussed today?
Yeah. I mean, my final thoughts to wrap things up from what we've been talking about, and Will said it earlier, like, just be yourself. And I will say, like, from personal, like, experience, like, you're constantly learning more about yourself. Like, there's been plenty of times where I'm like, I'm a grown ass man. I know exactly what's going on. And it only takes about 3 to 4 days for some shit to happen that you're like, damn, I don't know anything about this. And you know what I mean? You don't know how you're going to react in certain situations until they happen. So just, I would say to the audience out there that's listening, if you're nervous about something or you're like, damn, I'm unsure about this, like, you're never going to know until you know. Like, you're always like growing and developing. So just be confident in who you are today. Be that person the best that you can be. And if that changes over time, so be it. Just roll with it. Advice from Nick.
For sure. Yeah, you're doing the best that you're doing. You're doing everything that you know how to do. So don't beat yourself up over a mistake or like, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. You know, be forgiving to yourself when you can be, but also, so find the boundary, find the balance, accountability and forgiveness with yourself. You gotta find that, because you don't want to be not accountable, because then you just be a wild person, but then you don't want to be, you know, too hard on yourself, because then you have no self-confidence. So
that's true.
That's life is all about balance, right? Right. Nick and I learned that from Avatar.
Yes.
Avatar is about balance.
So.
Yes. Yes. We have talked about Avatar several times, because it's the one thing Nick and I can connect on, because he's not seen anything else that I want to talk to him about. So any other movie or show, he's like, nope, haven't seen it, haven't played it, nope.
Maybe I'll start it.
Yeah, it's only it's going on Netflix soon. So Nick, by the way, they put the animated show on Netflix. The animated.
Okay, that's good. You watch animated Avatar first. For anybody out there that's considering, watch the cartoon version first. Okay.
Well, don't watch the movie. No, don't watch that.
Never watch the movie.
Never watch the movie. Not unless you want to hate your life, because it's so terrible.
So bad.
If you want to watch a bad movie that's so bad it's good, it's The Room. Watch The Room, and that movie's so terrible. Yeah, if you watch that movie, just keep in mind it's the worst movie ever made, but it's so hilarious that it's definitely worth the watch. So I will recommend.
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah, that one. Definitely watch The Room. But also, I will say, just for the underage viewers, just cover your ears. The Room, there is a lot of like prolonged sex scenes. So so it's like it gets really like it gets really crazy sometimes. So like if you're watching, don't watch it with your grandmother, or don't watch it with your family or anything. Just with that. Just heads up, because I didn't want to throw anyone who's listening or Christy into that pit of fire where you just watch The Room and you're like, oh, now Will didn't warn me for this, but now
she goes home and she's like telling her family, she's like, yeah, I did a podcast with Nick and Will the other day, and Will said we should watch this movie, The Room. You guys want to watch? He's like, excuse me.
Yeah, there's some crazy stuff in it, but that's the only crazy stuff. Otherwise, it's just really bad acting, and so.
Oh, okay. Well, they tried.
Yeah, it's good.
It's good. Yeah, there we go.
It's good, and it's good in a bad way. So, and my final thoughts would just be, confidence is important, so be confident in yourself, but not overconfident where you reach the arrogant threshold. But, as Christy mentioned, you're probably going to have to pursue if you're a guy. If you're a guy, you're probably going to have to pursue, because I think, women, I think, are coming more along to the idea of pursuing themselves, but pursuing others, rather, not pursuing themselves. But like to the point where, guys, might not have so much responsibility in that, but it seems like that's still kind of a reality. So that's something probably to factor into your experiences.
If you're a woman, pursue. You can do it. It's fine.
Right. There's nothing saying you can't. Yes. And I think, as a woman, also I think, what I've always tried to encourage is like, it's got to be 50-50 in any relationship. So you can't have a dominant and a subordinate, right? So you got to have 50-50. And then if you want, equality, you got to have the equality in the relationship. You got to be equals. But that's a whole nother topic.
Oh, it is such a good topic. I just have to sneak this in there. I heard this quote and I love it so much. Give 60%, expect 40%.
That is a good quote, actually.
Not bad.
I really enjoyed that one.
The fact that we just talked about not having expectations.
Yeah, true.
So, but okay, but but we did say there's a boundary. So the boundary is at 40%. So if you know you're going over 40%, then you know you went too far.
Okay.
Okay, there you go. So I've redeemed you, Christy. I got you.
Yes.
Oh God. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, is there anything we want to plug before we get off here?
Dina?
Oh, I make music. You can find me at Big Fat Spaceship on SoundCloud and Instagram and TikTok.
There you go.
Ooh, and it will be linked in description for our YouTube audience.
Yes.
We love the YouTube audience. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you're just going to have to search that manually or come watch us on YouTube. Wow, it'll be so fun.
Yeah, there you go. You can see our faces in a gallery view.
Yeah.
That should be how it shows up. This will be our first time like downloading the video, right? So it should be.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I don't think we said it at the beginning. And guys, I jacked it up. I screwed up the video last time. It was our first time using Zoom, and the files got saved as the same thing. Like Will mentioned earlier, it wasn't a continuous video. So I'm so sorry. But this time we will have a whole video for your viewing enjoyment.
Yes. Absolutely. So, and now we have Christy. So we'll have a great 3-way conversation here that you can view in gallery view. Because typically it's just Nick and I sitting, one of us sitting in the chair, one of us sitting here. And then, we need to switch things up.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. First
thank
guest.
you for coming on. Yeah. Amazing. So you did a great job, Christy. So thank you for coming on. And hopefully we'll definitely have you back soon as long as you're willing. Hopefully we didn't scare you off.
Yeah, of course. No, I hope I didn't scare you.
Only the therapy stuff. That's it.
Sorry.
No, I'm kidding. No, therapy is a great thing. So I'm glad you've promoted that. So, okay. So I think that's it for episode 16.
Yeah. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.